My name is Jordan Fieldman. I'm 34 years old. I've had illness and medical problems since the time I was 17, half my life. I'm currently a licensed physician in the state of Massachusetts. I met Michio Kushi back in the later part of medical school when I was living in Boston, and actually moved out to the Berkshires at his recommendation, not only to do my residency, which I'm in the middle of doing, but also to teach at the Kushi Institute. I began a macrobiotic diet 8 years ago, 1992. When I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis. Ulcerative colitis is an inflammation of the colon that results in diarrhea, blood, mucus, a lot of pain in the abdomen. I was pretty sick for at least 5 or 6 years throughout college, having 10 to 15 bloody bowel movements a day, and didn't know really what to do. I was doing what I could with medicine, but nothing really seemed to control the symptoms. When I entered medical school in 1988, I was diagnosed that semester with brain cancer. I underwent a 15-hour neurosurgical procedure, surgery on the brain, and had 9 months of chemotherapy and 10 weeks of radiation to the brain and the spine every day. After this, I returned to medical school, and after my 3rd year in medical school, I went to do a project on Tibetan medicine living in India. It was not a good idea to go to India with ulcerative colitis. I got very sick. I had very severe dysentery, many parasites, including amoebas and Ascaris, Shigella, Salmonella. When I got back to Boston, I went directly from the airport into the hospital. I did not go back to my dormitory. I stayed in the hospital for 6 weeks. For 6 weeks I had nothing to eat by mouth. I was being fed intravenously through the jugular vein. I was receiving high doses of intravenous steroids, and still my colon was not getting better. I still had a lot of inflammation, and after 5 weeks, even though we had tried an additional strong medicine, the colon was not healing, and the doctors said, you need to have your colon removed. Ulcerative colitis is very bad, the inflammation is bad, you have to have the colon removed. I knew what the surgery involved because I had seen it as a medical student. And although there are many people who have the surgery and lead perfectly happy lives afterwards, I was afraid of the surgery. I'd already had surgery on the brain. I did not want to go through another major operation. My girlfriend at that time told me I needed to contact Michio Kushi. I didn't know about macrobiotics. I didn't know about Michio. But I knew I did not want my colon removed, so I made a bargain with the doctors that I would take 1 year and try a dietary approach to healing myself. If I could, I would keep my colon. If not, they would take out my colon. I met a counselor in Boston named Evelyn Harboon. She gave me the diet that I needed to follow, and it looked completely foreign to me. I had no idea what the foods were. I really didn't know how to cook very well. And then I took this information and I went and I was doing research for a year at the National Institutes of Health. So I started this new life, cooking foods that I didn't know about, and it was difficult, very challenging at first because I was a scientist and I would see the recipe that says a pinch of this or a dash of that, and I wanted to do everything exactly, like an experiment, that you need to do very exact proportions for something to come out properly. So everything was very rigid. I was very strict. I was craving a lot of meat, craving sweets, dairy, baked goods, but I knew that my health depended on this, so I adhered fairly rigidly to the diet. And it was like voodoo. And I say voodoo because it healed me. I was having no symptoms. I had gone 7 years having very bad symptoms my whole life. And now I was living, eating strange foods that, ironically, whole foods, whole grains, bulky foods, that the medical professionals, my physicians, had told me to avoid. And now I was eating all the foods that I had been led to believe would make my condition worse, and instead I was feeling healthier than I'd ever had felt in terms of my colon and in general health as well. So I said voodoo, and people said, how did it work? I said, I don't know how it works, but it works. Then I came back to medical school, stayed on my macrobiotic diet after the research year. And then during my last year, I was doing a particularly difficult month, working as a sub-intern in medicine, meaning I would sometimes be in the hospital for 34 hours in a row. And it was very stressful. I was not eating properly. I was not sleeping adequately. And I got sick one day. At noon, I was having a lot of symptoms again, the diarrhea with the blood and the mucus, the pain. And at noon, I happened to see my doctor in the hallway, and I told him what was going on, and he said, you need to be admitted to the hospital immediately. So that afternoon, I had admitted 5 patients to that floor that morning, and that afternoon I became a patient on the floor with my patients, whom I had admitted. Again, it was identical to the last time. 6 weeks, nothing by mouth, being fed intravenously, high doses of steroids, and when that wasn't working, it was high doses of cyclosporin in addition to the steroids. It's another very potent immunosuppressant to suppress the inflammation. Despite all the medicines, despite not eating anything, I was not getting better, and the surgeons started coming to the bedside and insisting that I have the colon removed. I knew that that was the right thing to do. And again, I know that this is what patients do, and it's the appropriate thing medically, but I was unwilling to have the procedure done. I wanted to still live with my colon. So, when they gave me the ultimatum that on Friday the surgeons came in and were saying, every day you are not getting better, Monday we will schedule the surgery and we will take the colon out. So that day I called Michio Kushi and asked him for help. I was desperate. Not desperate. I was desperate for help. I did not want the colon removed. He gave me exactly the diet that I needed to do to cure myself, and we contacted a cook in the community who was able to bring the food to me in the hospital. And I was not permitted food. I was being fed intravenously, so we had to sneak the food into the hospital. And for 2 days, I ate exactly what he said. I chewed the food 200 times every mouthful. And again, like magic, within 1 day after eating the food, I was, instead of having 10 loose, bloody diarrheas a day, I had 1, maybe 2, maybe 3 solid, healthy bowel movements. So for me, it was like a miracle. The next day, too, I went down to maybe 2 bowel movements. Monday, when the surgeons came, I said, cancel the surgery, I'm not going to have it because I'm getting better. And they said, well, this is probably a fluke. We don't believe that you really are getting better. So we will wait a few more days to see if you stay better. And by that point now, I had smuggled in a stove into the hospital room, a little gas stove. Maybe I shouldn't say this on tape. But the cook would bring me the food in the morning, and I would heat it up on the stove and cook some things myself with the door closed, hiding everything, so the nurses, the doctors didn't know what I was doing. But I was cooking the food, eating it, and for 3 days I kept getting healthier and healthier, until finally, at the end of the week, the doctors were convinced, yes, I really am healthy, and I convinced them, and they agreed, that it's better for me to have the surgery when I'm healthy and not when I'm sick. So even though I did not intend to have the surgery, I actually told them I would have the surgery just to make them agree to let me go, because I really wanted to leave the hospital. So after 6 weeks I left, and I stuck with this diet, and I stayed very healthy, and I did not choose to have the surgery done.